Hi there. If you want company working on a creative project or painting, I'm going to be painting today and um, just talking about the creative process, get those juices flowing. Maybe you want to brainstorm or plan, ideate, or just get down into it. So, this is what I've got so far. Let's see. Okay. It's a collage. So this is the reference image that I'm gonna be working from, that I collaged together and edited in Photoshop. And I used the grid to sketch it out in pencil, and now I'm gonna be filling it, painting it with acrylics. So I gotta get my paints. I need cadmium red and quinacridone red, cobalt blue, and ultramarine blue. And I only have one shade of yellow. I believe it's the cool yellow, benzimidazolone yellow medium. And raw umber in white. Okay. Alright, it's my first time doing this, so just gotta iron out the kinks. Thank you for being here. Yeah, that's how I open my tubes of paint. Just gotta make sure none of it actually gets in my mouth, right? You know, I'm human. I do monkey things sometimes. So, the primary colors, you can mix them: red, yellow, blue, into a wide range of colors. And I also like to have white and raw umber to, what's it called? Lighten the hue. Is it the hue? When needed. You know what I mean. The lightness or darkness. I forget the exact name. And I also like to have two for each primary color, one cool and one warm, just to give me some more flexibility, and just like flexibility with the temperature of the color, because I'm not a master color mixer. In fact, I'm also going to be using a tool. I think it's called palette picker or something. And I have the reference photo loaded up on here, and I can go on the different pixels and it tells me the hex code and like the value for RGB. So you know, I like to use tools to help me out, especially because this painting feels a little bit overwhelming, to be honest with you. It's a pretty ambitious one, but I'm hopeful that I can bring it to completion for a show that I'm submitting work to. So, okay. All right. Actually, I'm gonna turn it so I can start with this part. What? Dropping things is part of the creative process. Heard it here first. Alright. I feel like the first brush stroke always feels like, you know, like more intimidating. Like just like when you're looking at a blank piece of paper, white paper, and you're sketching something and you have no idea what you're gonna sketch. But once you kind of get going, you know, it gets easier. And it's also good to be mindful of your posture when you're painting or drawing or what have you, writing. My cat is doing some mess over there. Okay. Poppy. I don't know if you can see her. She's down there. The cat, I mean. The cat that lives with me. So, of course, every painting has its ugly stage. That's where my painting is right now. And it's like coming to terms with just accepting that sometimes your painting is gonna be ugly, and that's the process. Not letting that scare you off, but leaning in, just trusting yourself. Now she's licking my toes. Little troublemaker. I feel like what a lot of people struggle with when they embark on the journey that is completing or creating a piece of creative work is just like sticking with the process. And I kind of feel like that's just a part of being human. As humans, we kind of want instant gratification or more gratification than less. It's a part of our programming as animals. It's like, of course, we need that. Because otherwise, how else are we gonna survive, these winters, etc., if we're always just focused on keeping the goal in mind that's, months away when we need food now, if that makes sense. And the way to apply that to creative work is, we kind of want things to look good right away, and we want them to be presentable and finished so that we can get the gratification of having it be done or sharing it or getting feedback. Which is all very well and good. It's receiving feedback is also a critical part of the creative process. And it's like you need to have made some steps forward in order to to get the most out of feedback, right? Hope I'm making sense. And I say that, all that about it's human to want validation, to want the reward of completing the project, because I feel like adopting this perspective and just recognizing that it's a natural part of us to want the result and the outcome and all that, because I feel like, for me at least, it gives me a certain amount of grace or compassion with myself, to just not be so hard on myself when I do find myself, struggling against, oh, why can't this be done already? Or any of the other obstacles that we may encounter when we decide to create something. And creativity is an act of bravery for sure. So you're being very brave by carving out this time to make something, create something, express what your soul wants to say. So, it's that process of sticking with it that makes it challenging to be creative on a consistent basis, because everybody wants to be good at their craft, which is totally understandable. And the dedication that it takes to to stick with something, to build that capacity, to hone that mastery, or, I don't want to use the word mastery because it just has this colonialist energy to it. But the practice that it requires to hone excellence in a craft, it requires being present through the uncomfortable parts of a process, like when the painting looks ugly, or when you're so frustrated with yourself for not being good, or not performing, or displaying a level of technical skill that you wish for. And I feel like in the essence of that willingness to be present with the painful, uncomfortable parts of the creative process, that's what really is so sacred about it, like being present through the ups and the downs, showing up fully even when it sucks. It's like, who are your most treasured people in your life? The ones that stuck with you through the ups and the downs, right? That's what creates a real bond, is that willingness. To be present through the pain and the pleasure. Instead of, being a fair weather friend, maybe try being a real one to your whatever your creative practice is, rather than a fair weather friend. And it's easy to be a fair weather friend. It's easy to be around when everything is easy breezy and feeling good and you got the results that you wanted. It's easy to be present, or maybe not. Well, it is easier to be present than compared to the challenging moments that often no one else sees. When you're cultivating a relationship with a creative practice, whether that be writing or painting or drawing, and it is a practice. You don't have to be so hard on yourself about it. I know I definitely was hard on myself about the way I was, the way I am. Like giving yourself grace to be not good at something. Who cares? You're enjoying it. That's the most important thing. I realized I'm not pulling very much from the cool version of the primary colors for this painting. When I was collaging it in Photoshop, I put I did a little color balance to kind of blend together all these different photos of the cat. And in that process, I kind of lean towards more of a warm tone overall for the painting. So that's something to keep in mind the next time I squeeze out new paint. That's another great thing about the creative process. It's iterative. So if you're present for it, you can pay attention to what shows up, what happens, and then navigate accordingly. Posture check. And right now I'm just kind of trying to get a gradual handle on the painting itself by, just putting down paint. So some people like to wash the whole canvas and build out form and shape from there. Personally, since I start with a sketch that's quite detailed and referenced, I don't want to start with a wash because I want to preserve the sketch. But it's like finding the way of working that feels the best for you, that works for you. Because I actually, when I close my eyes, I can't see anything. You're either like, why is that something special? Or like, what the fuck? Or maybe you know about aphantasia, which is just like some people's brains don't visualize things when their eyes are closed, and other people can do that. And of course it's a spectrum. It's not like you can either see nothing or create movies, hyper realistic movies in your mind. It's a spectrum like everything else in life. But because I cannot visualize, like when I close my eyes and someone tells me to see an apple, I literally don't see anything. Like I see black. Or whatever the color is, like when you close your eyes, So I think because of that, the way that I draw and paint is different than perhaps someone who can just make up shit in their minds. which is really cool, honestly. Like, sometimes I wish I was able to do that. Seems like a superpower to me. But apparently, there are advantages to not visualizing, to have aphantasia. Like, your conceptual thinking is strengthened. Like what they say about, like, when you lose a sense, like one of your 5 conventionally acceptable senses. Like if you lose your eyesight, then your other senses, like smell and taste and feeling, touch, smell, they get a lot stronger, because it's like your brain is this magnificent organ that can reorient itself when things change. Like, your brain just has this amazing capacity to be plastic and change over time according to what you feed it. And of course, this can be food, literal food, and it can be, what kind of thoughts are you thinking? What kind of media are you consuming? How often are you cultivating your capacity to bring yourself back into mindful presence? All that. So your brain can quite literally change over time with dedication and consistency. And so about my process here right now, I'm not trying to be all fancy with the details. I'm just trying to put some stuff down so it's not so I can, get a handle on the painting itself. And I actually like this method of kind of sketching with the dark paint, because honestly it's a little bit hard to see the pencil shading. All right, time for a break. So we're standing up, we're stretching, we're walking around a little bit. Feeling your feet on the ground. Just kind of reminding yourself, oh yeah, I have a body. And also maybe taking a step back to see how it's turning out. And it's like I kind of have to giggle a bit because it looks pretty ugly to me. But you know what? We keep going. Trusting the process. And another great thing about taking a step back is, especially if you're a visual artist, I'm sure you know this already, but seeing something from far away kind of gives you a better sense of what it looks like, because we can often get sucked into the details. And I see I'm getting kind of sucked into this cat head over here, so I'm gonna move on, reminding myself that this stage of the painting is more to lay some groundwork down rather than to get into detail. And it's always nice to take a sigh too. And just let out a deep breath. Especially as you are working in the mode of your awareness that is more focused and concentrated, more activated. Your nervous system is more activated when you're focusing on a painting or a math problem. Like that, especially the parts of the process that don't necessarily feel good. You know, like the uncomfortable parts. I feel like, oh yeah, that's kind of the reason why humans in general, I believe, we have a more difficult time sticking with the creative process when the going gets tough, because we are not as well practiced in this balanced state of activation where we're not terrified, like we're not in fight or flight, but our nervous systems are still activated. I forget what that's called. I think a meditation teacher that I practice with, Manoj Dios. Copy! Oh my lord. That was my fault. A meditation teacher that I practice with calls it convergent thinking, where generating ideas and kind of being in a diffuse state of brainwave is called divergent thinking, where you're allowing yourself to go in all these different directions. If that's divergent thinking, you know, branching out, convergent thinking is like coming back in, like focusing all that diffuse energy back into like a focus point. And that's often required when in the stage of a creative project, you know, or a practice. And it's the mode of brainwave that we kind of don't cultivate as much, or it doesn't come as naturally to us. I don't know. but the way to increase your capacity for convergent thinking and build your stamina around being able to focus and stick through the challenging parts of a creative project. There are many ways to do it, including practicing doing just that, of course, but also I would say practicing something like yoga or meditation, mindfulness, where you're kind of taking time to ground in your body and your breath over and over again. That practice, surprisingly, it does apply itself to other aspects of your life, whether you have a job or you're in school or you're a creative person or any and all of the above. The mindfulness practice, when applied consistently, has so many benefits to your everyday life. So many benefits. It's life-changing, actually. It certainly has been life-changing for me, at least. And that mindfulness practice can, of course, look like whatever feels best for you, whatever you can stick with. Just like with exercise, with moving your body, it's like you're not going to be consistent if you're swimming and you hate swimming, but you love lifting weights, so you want to go and do it consistently. It's the same with a mindfulness practice, So many different forms and modalities to explore. And kind of notice my lower back talking to me a little bit. So I'm gonna just take a moment to give my back some space. Stretching is also really good. I love stretching. See the cat here. Maybe she wants to say hi. Kopi. Kopirannya. Well, sometimes she lets me pick her up, but right now is not the time. You know, for me, having a pet or being in charge of taking care of an animal has been the extreme lesson of patience. Especially when she does things that I don't want her to do. Like wake me up way too early. Or knocking over and eating the plants. Woof. But I'm taking it as a learning experience. And not being too hard on myself for going through the process, for being human in the process of learning something that I'm not familiar with. Oh yeah, and so sighing. Letting out a sigh when you're in focus mode, it can help to, blow off some steam there. I totally went on a total tangent, which I am prone to do, and which I'm sure you are too, as a creative person. We're all creative at the core of it. It just, the way that we express that creativity is diverse amongst us all. And one other thing about cultivating a creative practice is giving it space. I actually finished the sketch, I think, over a couple months ago, and it's just been under that black sheet ever since, until now. And just giving the work room to breathe. That's something one of my creative friends, he's an amazing painter, shared with me, that really stuck with me, is like giving the work space to breathe, taking breaks from it. Because if you're up on it 24/7, what does it feel like when you're sticking with something so hard that you're seeing it every single day, day in and day out, all day, every day? Burnout, suffocation, etc. which usually we don't want. So it's like sticking with it through the challenging moments, but while also doing it with a sense of lightness, not being too heavy about it. And you know what never hurts too? Tapping into a sense of gratitude for being able to create, for yourself, for being brave enough to embark on a creative journey. It's not something that everyone can do, that anyone can do. Some people live their whole lives without ever doing anything that scares them or daunts them or challenges them in some way, or so I'm told. But as you live your life, you definitely run into some people who are quite comfortable with themselves, just existing in the parameters of what they've always known and just being comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that if that works for them. But again, it's like not everyone can do what you're doing, and that's something to recognize and honor about yourself. Yes, everyone has the capacity to be creative and brave and stick with the challenging moments, but not everyone chooses to do it. And I guess that's what I mean by not everyone can do what you're doing. Because you're the only you that exists. No one can be you better than you can. I just heard my shoulder click, so that reminded me to put some energy in my upper back and my core while I'm painting. It's a physical act. You're using your body to do it. So, it requires physical energy. You gotta use your inner support systems, your core, Uddiyana Bandha, if you're familiar, Mula Bandha. That's from a yogic perspective, which just means like activating your core, keeping an awareness of your core and your pelvic floor, just to bring some awareness in your body. Oh, and also in the yogic tradition, there's this concept of sthira and sukha. And sukha, you hear of sukhasana, the easy pose when you're sitting cross-legged on the ground. That's some ease, like flowing, softness, diffusing, just kind of going with the flow. And then balancing that sukha with sthira, which is kind of that convergent thinking or focused awareness, cultivated with intention. And they're not exactly opposites, even though they can be perceived as opposites. More like you need both of them. You can't have one without the other. Just like you need light and dark. You can't have the light without the dark. Quite literally, you need both. And here I'm just kind of going a bit more diffuse now, in the sense that I'm not concentrating so hard on looking at the reference, and more just kind of going with the flow, which is the fun part about creating. I've also learned to appreciate and enjoy the sthira aspects of it, of focusing and cultivating that capacity for focus. And also, for me, a painting is always gonna look different than I envisioned it. And it's like a process of co-creation, in that sense of allowing the painting to take you to places being flexible to unexpected changes in direction. And just being open to what happens, while also being grounded in your intention, of course, when we're talking about life scenarios. So I didn't expect myself to go in with I guess you could say, almost a line work with the cats here. But it's making sense to me in how to progress this painting. And many of these lines might not even be here at the end of the painting. Who knows? That's the beauty of it. But it's making sense to me right now, and so I'm following the thread. And I also sense myself wanting to wind it down a bit now. I don't know exactly how long I've been going. I mean, I can check the recording. But it's also good to listen to that feedback, from your system, like, hey, time to step back, or give the project some more space. Like I mentioned before, giving your creative projects some space, if you can, never hurts. The way that I can kind of sense when my body is nudging me to take a break or step back is just kind of this feeling of gripping, I suppose, in my chest area. And sometimes, of course, I do sit with that resistance of like wanting to take a break or like wanting to stop, because sometimes I do have trouble allowing myself to take a break, so let me just go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with how the painting's coming along, even though some bits are quite ugly. But it's like, it's part of the process, right? It's not ugly, it's in process. But yeah, I think this is a decent stopping point. We're at a bit past an hour. Well, thank you so much for joining me and painting with me, creating with me. I really enjoyed doing this, so I think I'm gonna keep doing this. Maybe with this very painting as well. So we get to see how this process unfolds for this particular painting, and I would love to hear about what you're working on too. And I hope that this session, this painting session, paint with Yaren session, and a glimpse into Snakeskin Studio, I hope that it was supportive to you and that you felt grounded and more anchored in a frequency of acceptance and compassion and seeing the whole picture instead of getting caught in black and white polarities. So yeah, thanks so much, and Like, comment, subscribe if you liked it, all that jazz, and I'll see you next time.